The massive alien fleet appeared without warning on a quiet Tuesday morning. Earth's most advanced telescopes captured the moment when dozens of sleek, metallic ships emerged from what looked like tears in the fabric of space itself. They positioned themselves in a precise formation just beyond Mars' orbit, their hulls gleaming under the distant sunlight. At CERN's research facility in Switzerland, Dr. James Miller was the first to notice something odd. His quantum fluctuation experiments had been showing strange readings all morning, patterns he had never seen before in his 15 years of research. The background radiation levels were dancing in ways that defied normal physics, and his instruments were picking up waves of energy that shouldn't exist in nature. "Look at this," he said to his research assistant, pointing at the wildly fluctuating displays. These readings started exactly 3 hours before the ships appeared. He ran his fingers through his graying hair, a habit he had developed during his decades of research. The young assistant leaned in, adjusting his glasses as he studied the complex data patterns flowing across the screen. Meanwhile, at space agencies around the world, chaos erupted as tracking systems struggled to make sense of what they were seeing. The vessels defied every known law of physics, hovering motionless relative to Mars, while emitting energy signatures that made their instruments go haywire. NASA's Deep Space Communication Arrays picked up unusual signals, but all attempts to decode them failed. "Sir, you need to see this," called out Robert Taylor, one of NASA's senior communications officers. He had been manning his station for 20 hours straight since the first ship appeared. "The energy output from these vessels, it's off the charts. Nothing we know of could generate that kind of power." The world's leaders gathered in an emergency virtual conference, their faces grave as they discussed the situation. Military forces worldwide went on high alert, though everyone knew their most advanced weapons would probably be useless against visitors who could cross interstellar space. Dr. Miller spent hours analyzing the data, comparing it with every known phenomenon in physics. Something about the energy pattern seemed almost familiar, but he couldn't quite place it. He was about to take a break when his computer started beeping urgently. The alien ships were moving. In perfect synchronization, the fleet spread out into an even larger formation. Then, without warning, they broadcast their first message to Earth. It came through on every frequency, in every language, flooding every communication device on the planet. "People of Earth," the message began, its tone cold and mechanical. "Your planet has been chosen for incorporation into the collective. Your resources and biological material will serve a greater purpose. Resistance is not advised. You have 24 Earth hours to surrender your governing authorities. Those who comply will be processed humanely. Those who resist will face extinction." The message repeated 3 times before falling silent, leaving the world in stunned silence. Panic spread across the globe as the message reached every corner of civilization. Stock markets crashed, riots broke out in major cities, and millions tried to flee urban areas, creating massive traffic jams on every highway. Back at CERN, Dr. Miller noticed something extraordinary in his readings. During the alien transmission, the quantum fluctuations had changed again, but this time they created a pattern that perfectly matched certain natural phenomena on Earth. He began cross-referencing the data with every known natural frequency on the planet. "It's like they're using some form of quantum entanglement for their technology," he muttered to himself, his fingers flying over the keyboard. "But there's something about Earth's natural fields that's interfering with their signals. Something we're missing." As the hours ticked by, military forces worldwide prepared for what seemed like an impossible battle. Fighter jets were fueled and armed, missile systems were readied, and soldiers said goodbye to their families. Everyone knew these preparations were probably futile, but humanity wouldn't go down without a fight. 17 hours into the ultimatum, Dr. Miller made his breakthrough. He discovered that the alien ship's energy signatures shared remarkable similarities with Earth's electromagnetic field, particularly in areas where human neural activity was highest. It was a crazy theory, but he couldn't ignore the data. He immediately called his old friend and colleague, Dr. Anna Thompson, a leading expert in human consciousness and electromagnetic fields. "Anna, I need you to look at this data right now," he said urgently. "There's something about human consciousness that might be more important than we ever imagined." As Dr. Thompson analyzed the data, more alien ships appeared, taking positions around Earth's orbit. Their massive forms blocked out the stars, creating artificial eclipses visible from the ground. People gathered in streets, parks, and rooftops, looking up at the sky with a mixture of fear and awe. In his lab, Dr. Miller worked frantically to understand the connection between human neural patterns and the alien technology. Each new piece of data confirmed his theory. There was something unique about human consciousness that generated patterns similar to, but distinctly different from, the aliens' quantum field technology. With just 5 hours remaining before the ultimatum expired, world leaders received an urgent message from CERN. Dr. Miller's preliminary findings suggested a possible weakness in the alien technology, something that might give humanity a fighting chance. It wasn't much, but it was hope, and hope was something Earth desperately needed. As the final hours ticked away, humanity held its breath. Military commanders studied Miller's data, trying to figure out how to use this information tactically. Scientists worldwide began analyzing their own data, looking for confirmation of Miller's theories. And in every city, town, and village across the globe, people huddled with their loved ones, waiting to see if tomorrow would bring extinction or the biggest fight in human history. Dr. Miller stood at his laboratory window, looking up at the night sky, where the alien ships were visible as bright points of light among the stars. In his hand, he held a tablet displaying the latest data from his experiments. The numbers confirmed it. Humanity had something the aliens hadn't counted on. The question was, could they figure out how to use it in time? The quantum readings continued their strange dance across his monitors, telling a story that nobody had yet fully understood. But one thing was becoming clear. The greatest battle in human history wouldn't be won with bullets or bombs. It would be won with something far more fundamental to human nature, something that made Earth unique in ways they were only beginning to understand. As the clock ticked down to the final hours of the ultimatum, Dr. Miller and his team worked tirelessly, knowing that somewhere in their data lay humanity's best hope for survival. The real question wasn't whether they would fight. It was whether they could unlock the power of human consciousness itself before it was too late. The aliens struck at dawn. Their first attack targeted military installations across the globe, bright beams of energy cutting through the morning sky. Military commanders watched in horror as their most advanced weapons bounced harmlessly off the alien ship's energy shields. Missiles exploded against invisible barriers, and fighter jets were swatted from the sky like flies. At the Pentagon, General Mark Davis slammed his fist on the table as he watched another squadron of F-35s disappear from radar. "Nothing's working," he growled, surrounded by screens showing similar scenes of defeat from around the world. "They're picking us apart like we're fighting with sticks and stones." The alien weapons were unlike anything humanity had ever seen. They fired streams of superheated plasma that melted through concrete bunkers like butter. Their energy shields flickered with rainbow colors as they absorbed every attack Earth could throw at them. Small scout ships zipped through the skies, mapping Earth's defenses with obvious contempt for human military capability. Dr. Miller watched the attacks unfold on the news feeds in his lab, his mind racing. The quantum readings from his instruments had gone crazy the moment the aliens opened fire. But there was something else, a pattern he hadn't noticed before. Every time an alien weapon fired, there was a slight fluctuation in Earth's natural electromagnetic field. "Look at this," he called to Dr. Thompson, who had been working with him through the night. "The alien weapons, they're not just using energy. They're manipulating quantum fields somehow. But when they fire," he pointed to a spike in his readings, "Earth's own magnetic field responds. It's like there's some kind of interaction we didn't see before." Dr. Thompson leaned in, her tired eyes suddenly alert. "Wait a minute," she said, pulling up her own data. "I've seen patterns like this before. in my research on human brain activity during deep meditation. The frequency is similar, but the human patterns are more complex. Around the world, cities fell under alien attack. Their ships moved with terrifying precision, systematically destroying military bases, communication centers, and power plants. But something strange was happening. Some of their weapons were misfiring, particularly in areas with high population density. In his lab, Dr. Miller noticed the correlation. "Anna, look at these readings from New York," he said excitedly. "The aliens' weapons are less effective there. And look at the brainwave patterns from the city. Millions of people, all experiencing intense fear and stress at once. It's creating some kind of interference pattern." Dr. Thompson quickly ran the numbers through her computer. "James, this is incredible," she breathed. "Human neural activity, when concentrated in large numbers, is generating electromagnetic patterns that disrupt their quantum field technology. We're affecting their weapons without even knowing it." But the discovery came at a heavy price. Cities burned, armies fell, and millions fled their homes as the alien assault continued. The aliens seemed unstoppable, their technology so far beyond Earth's that resistance appeared futile. Yet in their very invincibility lay a clue to their weakness. General Davis received Dr. Miller's preliminary report with skepticism. "You're telling me human brain activity can interfere with their weapons?" he asked during an emergency video conference. "How is that possible?" "Think of it like this," Dr. Miller explained, his voice urgent. "Their technology operates on quantum principles we barely understand. But human consciousness, particularly when synchronized across large groups, generates its own quantum effects. We're not just dealing with simple electromagnetic fields, we're talking about something more fundamental." Dr. Thompson jumped in, adding her expertise. "Human brains are quantum computers, far more sophisticated than anything we've built. When millions of people experience similar strong emotions or thoughts, it creates patterns in the quantum field that seem to interfere with alien technology. We've seen it happening already. We just didn't understand what we were looking at." As they spoke, another wave of alien ships descended toward Earth's major cities. But in some locations, their weapons were becoming increasingly erratic. In Mumbai, a densely populated area where millions of people had gathered in temples to pray, alien energy beams fizzled and died before reaching their targets. Dr. Miller worked frantically to document these incidents, correlating them with his quantum readings. Each piece of evidence supported their theory. Humanity's greatest weapon against the alien invasion might be human consciousness itself. "We need to find a way to amplify this effect," Dr. Thompson said, studying the data. "If we could somehow synchronize and focus human neural activity on a massive scale." She trailed off, already sketching ideas on her tablet. The world's remaining military forces regrouped, adapting their strategies based on the new information. They began positioning their remaining assets near population centers, using the unconscious protective effect of human neural activity as a shield. It wasn't much, but it was their first real advantage against the overwhelming alien technology. In his lab, Dr. Miller noticed something else. The effect seemed stronger when people were focused on common goals or experiences. It's not just about numbers, he realized. It's about synchronization. When people's thoughts and emotions align, the effect becomes stronger. News of their discovery spread through secure channels to research facilities worldwide. Scientists began working around the clock to understand and exploit this unexpected weakness in alien technology. For the first time since the invasion began, humanity had a glimmer of hope. But time was running out. The aliens were adapting their strategies, focusing their attacks on less populated areas, and gradually working their way toward major population centers. They seemed to realize something was interfering with their weapons, though they hadn't yet identified the cause. Dr. Miller and Dr. Thompson worked through another night, fueled by coffee and desperation. They needed to find a way to concentrate and amplify human neural activity on a massive scale. The answer was there, hidden in their data. If only they could see it. "Look at these patterns. Dr. Thompson said suddenly, pointing to a series of waves on her screen. They're almost like music, rhythmic, harmonious. What if we could help people synchronize their mental activity using sound or light patterns? As the sun rose on another day of invasion, they had the beginnings of a plan. It wasn't much, but it was more than they had 24 hours ago. Humanity had discovered its secret weapon. Now they just needed to learn how to use it before it was too late. Dr. Miller stared at his computer screen, his eyes burning from lack of sleep. The patterns were becoming clearer with each new test. Human brainwave activity, especially during deep concentration, created ripples in the quantum field that somehow disrupted alien technology. But understanding the effect wasn't enough. They needed to find a way to use it. The effect is strongest when people are in sync, Dr. Thompson said, pointing to a series of readings. Look at this data from the meditation centers in Tibet. When large groups meditate together, the interference patterns are almost twice as strong as random crowd activity. Their breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A young lab technician had been listening to music while monitoring the quantum readings, and Dr. Miller noticed a sudden spike in the interference patterns. When they investigated, they found that rhythmic sounds at certain frequencies helped synchronize human brain activity across large groups. It's like tuning an orchestra, Dr. Thompson explained to the Emergency Scientific Council, gathered via video conference. We can use sound and light patterns to help people's brainwaves synchronize naturally. The more people we can get in sync, the stronger the effect becomes. Around the world, the alien invasion continued, but their advances had slowed. Their weapons worked perfectly in empty areas, but became increasingly unreliable near population centers. Some alien ships had even started avoiding densely populated cities entirely, focusing instead on infrastructure and isolated military bases. Dr. Miller's team worked around the clock to build their first prototype, a device they called the Neural Amplification Array. It looked simple enough. A collection of speakers and light panels connected to a central control unit. But its real power lay in its ability to help synchronize the brain activity of everyone within its range. The first test was conducted in a small auditorium at CERN. 100 volunteers sat in concentric circles around the device, while an alien weapon captured during a failed attack sat on a pedestal in the center. Dr. Miller held his breath as they activated the array. Soft, rhythmic tones filled the room, accompanied by pulsing lights that matched the frequency of natural human brain waves. The volunteers reported feeling peaceful, focused, as if they were all sharing the same meditation. On Dr. Miller's instruments, their brain activity began to synchronize. The alien weapon, which had been humming with energy, suddenly sputtered and went dark. The energy field around it collapsed completely. Dr. Miller could barely contain his excitement as he recorded the results. They had proven their theory. Human consciousness, properly focused and amplified, could directly interfere with alien technology. This is just the beginning, Dr. Thompson told the gathered scientists. Imagine this effect amplified across an entire city, or multiple cities working in harmony. We could create a shield that no alien technology could penetrate. The next challenge was scaling up the technology. They needed to build larger arrays and find ways to help millions of people synchronize their mental activity. Teams of engineers and scientists worked frantically to construct bigger versions of the prototype, while researchers refined the frequencies that worked best for mass synchronization. But they weren't working fast enough. The aliens had noticed the growing interference with their weapons and changed tactics. They began targeting the power grid, making it harder to maintain the electronic equipment needed for the neural amplification arrays. Cities went dark one by one as power stations were destroyed. Dr. Miller refused to give up. We need to make the arrays more resilient, he told his team. And we need to find a way to power them independently of the main grid. They began incorporating solar panels and battery systems into their designs, making each array self-sufficient. The human resistance grew stronger as word spread about the new technology. People volunteered in massive numbers to participate in synchronization sessions. They discovered that with practice, Groups could maintain the defensive effect even without the arrays, though not as strongly. Religious leaders began incorporating the synchronization frequencies into their services. Schools taught simple meditation techniques to children. Even sports events became opportunities for mass consciousness synchronization. Humanity was learning to use its mind as a weapon, turning thoughts and emotions into a shield against the alien invasion. Dr. Thompson made another crucial discovery while studying the data from successful defense events. "Look at this," she told Dr. Miller, pointing to a complex wave pattern. When people aren't just synchronized, but also focusing on positive emotions like hope or determination, the effect becomes even stronger. It's not just about brain waves, it's about the quality of our thoughts. This led to a refinement in their approach. Instead of just using sound and light to synchronize brain activity, they began incorporating inspiring music and imagery. The resistance became not just a physical and mental effort, but an emotional and spiritual one as well. Military commanders adapted their strategies around this new understanding. They positioned their remaining forces near synchronization centers, using the enhanced defensive effect to protect their assets. For the first time since the invasion began, they were able to launch successful counterattacks against alien positions. The aliens seemed confused by this development. Their sensors could detect the quantum interference patterns, but they couldn't understand how a supposedly primitive species was generating them. Some of their ships began conducting long-range scans of human population centers, trying to understand what had changed. Dr. Miller worked on expanding the range and power of the arrays, while Dr. Thompson focused on improving the synchronization techniques. They found that children were particularly good at maintaining the focused states needed for strong interference patterns. Schools became impromptu defense centers, with students and teachers working together to protect their communities. As the days passed, more and more people learned to maintain synchronized states even without the arrays. Human consciousness was evolving, adapting to meet the greatest challenge humanity had ever faced. What had started as a desperate scientific discovery was becoming a global awakening. But the aliens weren't done yet. They were adapting too, trying to find frequencies that could penetrate the human-generated interference. The war was far from over, but for the first time, humanity was fighting back with a power uniquely its own. The power of the human mind united in purpose and determination. Building the global network of mirror amplification arrays became humanity's greatest construction project. In every major city, teams worked day and night to construct the towers, disguising them as cell phone masts or radio antennas to avoid alien attention. The arrays had to be built in secret, often underground, while battles raged overhead. Dr. Miller supervised the construction of the primary hub in Switzerland, hidden deep within CERN's underground tunnels. Each array needs to be perfectly calibrated, he explained to the engineering teams. If the frequencies are even slightly off, the whole network could fail when we need it most. Above ground, the war continued. The aliens had adapted to humanity's defensive measures, focusing their attacks on less populated areas and trying to isolate communities from each other. They seemed to understand that humanity's strength lay in its unity, and they were determined to break that unity. Dr. Thompson worked with a global team of meditation experts, religious leaders, and psychologists to develop training programs for the volunteers. "The key is sustained focus," she told them during a secure video conference. "We need people who can maintain synchronized mental states for hours at a time." The training centers were set up in school gymnasiums, community centers, and places of worship. People from all walks of life learned the techniques needed to contribute to the defense network. Children proved especially adept at maintaining the necessary mental states, and special programs were developed for them. Underground facilities were built near each major array, designed to protect the key personnel and equipment needed to keep the network running. These bunkers became centers of resistance, where scientists and volunteers worked together to refine the technology and improve its effectiveness. One major breakthrough came when Dr. Miller's team discovered how to link the arrays into a synchronized network. Think of it like a giant web. He explained to military leaders. Each array amplifies the effect of human consciousness in its area, but when we link them together, the effect multiplies exponentially. The engineering challenges were enormous. Each array needed its own power supply, as the aliens had destroyed much of the power grid. Solar panels and wind turbines were built and camouflaged, while geothermal power plants were constructed deep underground. The human race had never attempted anything so complex and coordinated. Meanwhile, Dr. Thompson made another crucial discovery. The aliens' quantum field technology operates on principles similar to human consciousness, she explained to her research team. But while they use artificial means to generate their fields, we generate ours naturally. That's why we can disrupt their technology. Our fields are more complex and adaptable. The global construction effort had to be carried out in complete secrecy. Workers disguised their activities as civil defense projects or infrastructure repairs. Cities under alien attack used the chaos as cover to build their arrays, while less affected areas worked under the cover of darkness. Military forces around the world coordinated their efforts to protect the construction sites. Fighter pilots flew distraction missions, drawing alien attention away from critical areas. Ground forces defended key locations, buying time for the engineers to complete their work. Dr. Miller worked on the final piece of the puzzle, a control system that would allow all the arrays to be activated simultaneously. Timing is crucial, he told his team. When we activate the network, every array needs to power up at exactly the same moment. If we're even a fraction of a second off, the aliens might detect what we're doing before the defense field is fully formed. The control system was built deep within the CERN facility, protected by layers of rock and reinforced concrete. Backup systems were installed in other locations around the world, ensuring that no single strike could disable the entire network. As the network neared completion, humanity faced another challenge. They needed enough volunteers to power it. Millions of people would need to participate in synchronized meditation sessions, maintaining their focus even during alien attacks. Training centers worked around the clock, preparing people for their roles. Dr. Thompson developed a series of simple techniques that anyone could learn. The human mind is incredibly powerful, she told the volunteers. When we work together, focused on a single purpose, there's nothing we cannot achieve. Her words became a mantra for the resistance, spreading hope even in the darkest moments. The aliens seemed to sense that something was happening. Their attacks became more frequent and aggressive, as if they were trying to complete their conquest before humanity could fully implement its defenses. Cities burned, but under the smoke and ruins, the arrays were nearly ready. Military commanders prepared for what they knew would be the decisive moment of the war. When the network activated, they would need to strike quickly, taking advantage of the disruption to alien technology. Every remaining fighter jet, tank, and infantry unit was positioned strategically, waiting for the signal. Dr. Miller spent countless hours fine-tuning the control systems, running simulation after simulation. Each test brought them closer to success, but also increased the risk of detection. The alien sensor sweeps became more frequent, forcing them to work in short bursts between scans. In meditation centers around the world, volunteers practiced maintaining their focus through simulated attacks. They learned to stay synchronized even amid chaos and fear, their combined consciousness becoming a weapon more powerful than any in human history. The day before the planned activation, Dr. Miller and Dr. Thompson made their final checks. The network was ready. Millions of volunteers were prepared. Military forces were in position. Humanity had built something unprecedented, a defense system powered by the very thing that made them human, their unified consciousness. As night fell, people gathered in their assigned centers, ready for humanity's greatest test. The future of Earth would depend not on technology or weapons, but on the ability of millions of humans to join their minds in common purpose. The next day would determine whether humanity's secret weapon would be enough to turn the tide of war. Dawn broke over a world holding its breath. In meditation centers, bunkers, and hidden facilities across the globe, millions of people took their positions. The aliens had launched their largest assault yet, thousands of ships descending through the atmosphere in what they clearly intended to be their final attack. Dr. Miller stood at the main control panel in the CERN facility, his hands hovering over the activation switch. Screens around him showed the status of every array in the network, all glowing green and ready. Dr. Thompson sat nearby, monitoring the brainwave patterns of the volunteer groups. Everything they had worked for came down to this moment. All stations report ready, called out the communications officer. Around the world, military forces waited in position, their weapons aimed at the alien ships. They knew their conventional weapons would be useless until the neural network activated, but they stood ready nonetheless. The alien ships moved with deadly precision, their energy weapons charging for what they planned to be a devastating simultaneous strike. They had no way of knowing that humanity had prepared a surprise of its own. "Begin synchronization," Dr. Thompson commanded. In thousands of locations, the meditation groups started their practiced routines. The arrays began humming, their frequencies matching the natural rhythms of human consciousness. On her monitors, millions of brainwave patterns began aligning. The aliens struck first. Energy beams lanced down from their ships, aimed at major cities and military installations. But something was different this time. Even before the network fully activated, the combined consciousness of millions of focused humans began to create interference patterns. Dr. Miller watched the power levels rising on his displays. "Synchronization at 60%, he announced. 70%, 80%. The aliens' weapons were already showing signs of disruption, their beams flickering and weakening. In meditation centers worldwide, people maintained their focus with practiced discipline. Children and adults, rich and poor, people of all nations and beliefs joined their minds in a single purpose. The very air seemed to vibrate with the power of their combined consciousness. "Synchronization at 90%, Dr. Miller called out, preparing for full network activation. The aliens seemed to sense something was wrong. Their ships began to move erratically, their sensors detecting the building wave of quantum interference. "Now," Dr. Miller shouted, throwing the main switch. Every array in the global network activated simultaneously. A wave of invisible energy swept across the planet. The combined power of millions of synchronized human minds amplified and focused by the array network. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Alien energy shields flickered and died. Weapon systems went dark. Ships lost power and began falling from the sky. The quantum field generated by human consciousness, amplified by the arrays, created a disruption more powerful than anything the aliens had encountered before. Military forces seized their chance. Fighter jets, now protected by the neural interference field, engaged the struggling alien ships. Ground forces targeted the aliens' landed vessels, which could no longer maintain their defensive shields. In orbit, alien capital ships tried to compensate for the disruption. They attempted to adjust their quantum field generators, but human consciousness proved too complex and dynamic to counter. Each time they found a frequency that worked, the collective human mind would unconsciously shift and adapt, creating new interference patterns. Dr. Thompson monitored the effectiveness of different groups, quickly identifying which mental states produced the strongest disruptions. "The children," she said in amazement. "Their patterns are incredibly powerful. Their minds are so open, so free of limitations. They're generating interference the aliens can't predict." The alien fleet began to retreat, their supposedly invincible technology rendered useless by the power of human consciousness. But maintaining the defensive field required immense concentration from millions of people. Hour after hour, they had to maintain their focus, fighting exhaustion and stress. Dr. Miller watched anxiously as power readings fluctuated. "We need to maintain synchronization." He called out to the global network. "Everyone must stay focused. We can't let the field collapse now." Military commanders coordinated their attacks, trying to take advantage of every moment of alien weakness. Around the world, people who weren't part of the meditation groups gathered around screens, watching the battle unfold. When they saw the alien ships falling, When they realized humanity was actually winning, spontaneous celebrations erupted. This shared joy and triumph actually strengthened the neural interference field, creating new patterns that further disrupted alien systems. The aliens attempted one final desperate strike. Their remaining ships gathered in orbit, trying to concentrate their energy weapons on key population centers. But the neural defense field held strong. Their weapons barely penetrated the atmosphere before dissolving into harmless light. Dr. Thompson noticed something remarkable in her readings. "The field is self-sustaining," she announced. "The shared emotions of victory and hope. They're creating a feedback loop, strengthening the field beyond what the arrays alone could generate. The very spirit of humanity had become a weapon the aliens couldn't overcome." Military forces pressed their advantage, targeting alien command ships and communication centers. Without their energy shields and advanced weapons, the aliens proved vulnerable to conventional weapons. Humanity's determination and fighting spirit, combined with their unique neural defense, turned the tide of battle. In the CERN Control Center, Dr. Miller and Dr. Thompson watched as alien ships retreated in disarray. The few that could still power their engines fled toward space, while others made emergency landings, their crews surrendering to Earth forces. The neural network had exceeded all expectations. Not only had it disabled alien technology, but it had also demonstrated humanity's greatest strength, the ability to unite and adapt, to turn consciousness itself into a shield protecting Earth. As the last alien ships disappeared from radar, exhausted volunteers finally relaxed their mental focus. The arrays powered down to standby mode, ready to reactivate if needed. Humanity had achieved what seemed impossible. They had defeated an technologically superior invader not through advanced weapons, but through the power of the human mind united in common cause. In the weeks following humanity's victory, researchers began studying the captured alien vessels and interviewing the surrendered alien commanders. What they learned changed their understanding of not just the invasion, but humanity's place in the universe. Dr. Miller led the team examining the alien quantum field technology. In one of the intact ships, they found devices that looked surprisingly simple, crystalline structures connected to complex energy matrices. But it was the alien commander's explanations that truly shocked them. "Your species wasn't supposed to have this ability," one of the captured commanders told Dr. Thompson during an interview. The alien's translator conveyed a tone of bewilderment mixed with respect. "In all our conquests across 12 galaxies, we've never encountered beings whose consciousness could generate quantum fields naturally." The alien explained that their civilization had spent thousands of years developing artificial means to manipulate quantum fields, never imagining they would encounter a species that could do it naturally through thought alone. Their scanners had initially missed this ability because they weren't looking for biological sources of quantum manipulation. Scientists from around the world gathered at CERN to study both the alien technology and the neural network that had saved humanity. They discovered that human brains actually contained microscopic structures similar to the crystals in alien devices, but far more complex and adaptable. Dr. Miller spent days analyzing the data. "It's not just that we can generate these fields," he explained to a panel of world leaders. "Our minds create patterns far more complex than anything the aliens could achieve artificially. That's why they couldn't counter our defense. Human consciousness is simply too dynamic and unpredictable." The neural amplification array network remained active, though scaled back to a monitoring status. Cities began rebuilding, incorporating the arrays into their new infrastructure. What had started as a desperate weapon became a symbol of human unity and potential. Dr. Thompson made another fascinating discovery while studying long-term effects of the synchronized meditation sessions. People who participated in the defense network are showing increased empathy and cognitive abilities, she reported. "It's as if the experience of joining minds in common purpose has enhanced our natural capabilities." Children who had been part of the defense showed the most dramatic changes. Their ability to focus and work together improved dramatically. Schools began incorporating simplified versions of the meditation techniques into their daily routines, fostering both mental development and social harmony. The alien commanders revealed more about the wider galaxy. Their civilization wasn't the only spacefaring species, but they had been one of the most powerful thanks to their quantum field technology. News of their defeat by a supposedly primitive species spread quickly through interstellar communications channels. "You've changed the balance of power in this sector of the galaxy," one commander admitted. "Other species will think twice before attempting to invade Earth, knowing that human consciousness itself can be weaponized." Dr. Miller and his team worked to better understand humanity's unique abilities. They discovered that the quantum fields generated by human minds could be used for more than just defense. The technology had potential applications in communications, energy generation, and even space travel. The world's governments, recognizing the importance of maintaining unity in this new era of human development, established an international organization to oversee the neural network and coordinate humanity's growing awareness of its capabilities. Dr. Thompson was chosen to lead the research division. "We're just beginning to understand our potential," she told a gathering of international scientists. "The neural network didn't just save us from invasion. It showed us what we can achieve when we work together." This is the dawn of a new chapter in human evolution. Communities around the world maintain their meditation centers, not just for defense, but for the benefits of synchronized consciousness. The practice of joint meditation became a regular part of life in many cultures, bridging religious and social divides. The captured alien ships provided humanity with insights into advanced technology, but more importantly, they confirmed that human consciousness was unique in the galaxy. Other species had achieved space travel and advanced technology, but none had developed the natural ability to manipulate quantum fields through thought alone. Dr. Miller focused on understanding the implications of this discovery. "We're not just another intelligent species," he explained to his students. "We're something the galaxy hasn't seen before, beings whose minds can directly influence the quantum fabric of reality." The aliens' invasion forced us to discover this ability, but it's always been part of who we are. The world began preparing for its new role in the galaxy. The neural network was expanded and improved, ready to defend Earth if needed, but also serving as a symbol of human potential. Space programs were revived and enhanced, now incorporating both alien technology and humanity's unique mental capabilities. As Earth rebuilt and moved forward, the invasion became seen not as a disaster, but as a turning point, the moment when humanity discovered its true strength. The aliens had come expecting to find a primitive species ready for conquest. Instead, they had awakened humanity to its own power and potential. Dr. Thompson spent her days working with children, helping them develop their natural abilities. "The next generation will grow up knowing what we're capable of," she said, watching a group of students practicing synchronized meditation. "They won't just think about the future, they'll shape it with their minds." The neural network stood ready, its arrays gleaming in the sunlight above cities worldwide. But it was no longer just a weapon. It had become a testament to human unity and potential, a reminder that humanity's greatest strength lay not in technology, but in the power of minds working together in harmony. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, other civilizations looked toward Earth with new respect and perhaps a touch of fear, knowing that on this small blue planet, consciousness itself had become a force to be reckoned with.